everyone, thank you for joining me for yet another video. It is 2021. Thank you for those who on short notice joined me for New Year's Eve party. That was something a little different for the channel, was it not? Yeah, we want to keep a positive mind, a little reset for the new year, looking ahead, especially after the previous year that we have endured. However, it's kind of short-lived, but are we surprised? Here today, what I want to speak about is what's coming still for this year. And I think a big thing is where everyone around the world had their eyes fixed on the protests at Capitol Hill in America, and the way the CNN and other newscasts are calling it insurgents, domestic terrorism and everything like that. But this doesn't come as the first riot or protest that we're seeing for quite some time. Indeed, in the last 12 months or so, we've had quite a lot. And in fact, if you go back to 4 years ago, the mass amount of protests and riots they had against the democratically elected president, Donald Trump. So what I want to do is get you thinking. Have a look here at the video I'm going to play for you. I've kind of put a little bits and bobs from the Creative Commons together to show you really where we've been the last few years, how things get twisted a little bit, and see if you catch the difference when it comes to speaking about it, which I want to do after you watch this brief recap of the last 4 years. And let's talk a little bit more about where we're at now and what we should be alert to. So let's get started.
I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard.
Filling the streets in America's cities, protesting President-elect Donald Trump.
Crowds set fires, blocked freeways, and gathered at Trump's buildings all across the country.
We've been keeping an eye on this demonstration. Thousands of people pouring onto ours. Police arrested more than a dozen demonstrators there.
Large crowds also rally against Trump's election in New York.
Cities speaking out against President-elect Donald Trump. I'm down the freeway. And in Oakland, people set multiple fires on city streets, forcing police in riot gear.
But a number of incidents turned violent late this afternoon. A limousine was set on fire downtown. Smoke could be seen for...
Elsewhere, protesters dressed in black threw rocks and flash bombs and smashed windows, leading to more confrontations, injuries, and arrests. These demonstrators used tactic. The damage that has occurred today is unacceptable and not...
Officers. Some demonstrators smashed store windows. Protesters faced off with police in other cities, too, including Oakland, Denver.
To try to break up the crowd of roughly 1,500 people. Reports of attacks on drivers. Cell phone video shows a woman throwing detergent on protesters after she...
Nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to the Negro in his struggle for freedom and justice. I think for the Negro to turn to violence would be both impractical and immoral. I would hope that we can avoid riots because riots are self-defeating and socially destructive.
Please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Journalists such as CNN's Chris Cuomo and
These people did this for no reason. It's not gonna bring George back here. George is in a better place than we are.
This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is chaos. A protest has purpose. When Dr. King was assassinated, we didn't do this to our city.
So when I first watched this unfold in the past week with the protests in Capitol Hill, the thing that stood out for me straight away was the first footage. They were just walking in calmly. There was no police about. The ones that were about were just calmly letting them walk about, come in, more or less. But then obviously get out of hand as the more did come in, they realised what they were dealing with. But what really stood out for me, which I think is icing on the cake, saying something about CNN and other news channels, which I never really watch, but I couldn't miss that one. I would say the world's eyes were on America that day, like it was almost at 9/11 21 years ago. Everyone's like, have you seen what's happening in Washington? Have you seen what's happening? They've stormed Capitol Hill. I remember that type of sharing and talk way back in 2001, and that was before mobiles and all the social media were really really more available. But straight away, as soon as, what gave it away for me is the language used with CNN, the language used with these anti-Trump platforms. Doesn't matter he was the president or not, it doesn't matter about the democracy or not, which they claim to defend while speaking so ill about the man. Now, I'm not a big Donald Trump fan, I'm not a big supporter, I'm not even a voter obviously, I'm from Scotland. But when it comes to seeing the signs of the times, when it comes to seeing what's building up for communism, what's building up for tyranny, what's building up for our freedoms being taken away, when in America have we seen such a moment where the backbone's ready to break and give way, causing perhaps an opportunity for its enemies? After all many decades, America has been into every other nation that's first of all been divided and then they conquer it. Divide and conquer is always that principle. But what stood out for me was these insurgents, these anarchists, and then of course the domestic terrorists. But what you've seen in the video I've already played, they were bringing down statues of slave traders back in the day. Why did they have to do it just last year? Why not do it 50 years ago? Why not do it 10 years ago? Why did it have to be now? And yet in the Capitol Hill they're taking selfies next to the statues. Have you noticed that no statue was harmed in Capitol Hill? They were taking selfies at Nancy Pelosi's desk, they were taking selfies in the Speaker's chair, they were taking selfies at statues and all other different points. They didn't set it on fire, they didn't steal the computers, they didn't steal anything that they looked to loot. But yeah, if you see the protesters with what we've seen for the last few years, whether it's anti-Trump protesters or whether it's the Black Lives Matter protests, there's looting, there's desecration of churches, there's ransacking of churches and office buildings, businesses set ablaze. But yet, they're not insurgents, they're not anarchists, definitely not domestic terrorists. Now, why am I saying that? Well, I'm certainly not a racist. I deplore racism, I hate it, it boils my blood. I would always defend and walk side by side anyone when it comes to going against racism, against systematic racism, absolutely. But for the amount of people right now, their education is the news. And when you find a majority, whether it's your friends, family, the workplace, the majority are influenced by this media, which are then just, let's talk against Trump, we good people, let's talk against this fellow human being, let's keep talking against them. But yet, all you've got to go on is the news. Is that your education of anyone? Is that as best you can do? And I have to say, these past 12 months at least, in fact, sorry, these last 4 years, the build up and build up of rhetoric against this man has been unprecedented, and I think in my entire life I've never seen anything like it. In 5 minutes watching CNN just in that day as the protesters went into Capitol Hill, they really did go above and beyond, which I thought was impossible at this point. So the man who's brought the economy to booming, the man who's brought a lot of the military back, he's not a warmonger, all of a sudden now he is stepping aside. It's happening. Yeah, there's many things I don't think he did right, there's many things that's not went according to plan, and there's a lot of things where I do think it could have been done better by him. But some things he stood up for, whether it was the pro-life side of things, where he was for the military and the police, where Biden and Nancy Pelosi want to defund the police, but yeah, it's the first ones they call when they need the help. So I think this 12 months, without going on any further with my opinions and not taking sides on who's in charge and who's not, it's what's emerging. At the same time this week, as many Catholics, not just Trump people, I'm finding a lot in the Catholic Christian community, they're moving to the new app, Parler. However, Apple, Facebook, and I don't know who else in terms of platforms are taking away the app to Parler, making it harder for people to get into it because of what it stands up for and who's actually going in. Facebook are deleting a ton of anything to do with faith or the election and everything like that. That should cause us alarm to speaking about tyranny, communism, because it's taking away freedoms, it's taking away our rights, And all of a sudden this coronavirus as well, which is still not going away. Look back these last 4 years, then look back these past 12 months. Britain's now on its own, and that's another story for another day in terms of what the European rights are getting put aside and what Britain's pushing through as well. There's a lot of things happening here which I can't keep up with for the YouTube channel as much as I keep trying. But I'm looking at new ways of how to get those videos in place and to keep them coming, how much I can do while I'm doing other things. But I don't trust the media. I don't trust the social media platforms. I use them as a means to an end, such as my Facebook page, like Marian Apparitions group page, the Prophecy Prepper page. These things I use it for. I couldn't care less about anything else. I'm certainly not one for the popular vote because I'm very much against the grain. And although I've not explained things too well just now, what I would say is be on your guard, because as the Garibaldal visionary says, when all these things are coming about, is when communism returns. Remember, Lucia of Fatima more or less says that every nation on earth will be under communism. It's taken a new mask, but it's still the same thing behind it. It's still there. And it's coming more and more and more. These social media platforms, the media, now with the scapegoat out the way in the next coming week or two, so far it's all pro-Biden, so let's see if that continues. I personally believe Biden won't do the 4 years. I think Biden's going to go away, medical reasons, or maybe he'll kick the bucket. But Biden, I think, will step aside for Harris to take in, and I think then that's when we're really going to be in trouble. I believe she's very anti-Catholic, anti-bigoted ways, and that's not good either. What I struggle to fit in is how they take even words like Martin Luther King and twist it to almost justify all these riots of Black Lives Matter, all this real anarchy and burning down businesses, people's businesses, and their cities and what they're doing in society. That was never Martin Luther King. You hear it there and the rest of it, but why did they all justify it with that little bit? And you heard the CNN one, you don't get pleasant people in a riot, but yet when they do it because it's pro-Trump, they're domestic terrorists, they're insurgents, anarchists. I mean, the rhetoric, the words here are like night and day. And you have to ask yourself, well, why the difference? Are they just confused? They don't know their history properly, or the political strain that came back with the racism? Or could be these so-called good ones who are in good terms with the media and social media platforms use these riots as a means to an end? And as John Paul II says, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is using another for a means to an end. Selfishness. It's deliberate why certain ones get picked, like a female, not white, different things like that, Harris, you know. But these, Biden and Harris and this elite established group of politicians, big tech businesses and whoever else is involved in them have had 4 years of delay getting to the agendas that they want for the world. Not just for their nation, but for the world. Donald Trump was that obstacle. And if you really do half an ounce of logical research to see the facts and what happened in that American economy the last 4 years and everything else that he did, it boomed the economy, he brought the military home, he wasn't a warmonger. Now you watch to see what happens in the next few years under the Democrats. Let's see where we get the war coming back on the news. I'm already seeing missile tests happening in Russia and Iran and everything else. Why? Why all of a sudden? They've used the COVID to get them out. They've used the coronavirus pandemic. They're using all these things for more and more control, and we don't know what it's going to be yet, but we've got a good idea. Churches are undermined constantly, and that word undermined really should stand out with Anne Catherine Emmerich's visions during the time the churches were closed. I think the main thing to point out here is we are alert. We are alert to the growing communism that's coming based on the Marian apparitions, Garibaldal, the Sea of Fatima. But one thing that really stood out for me when I was watching that Capitol Hill protest, certain events will happen on Earth that will lead to the secrets of Medjugorje being revealed. Now, there's many things happened over many years since 1981 till now, but this is the 40th year of Medjugorje, coming up in June 24th. That is the 40th year we're getting into. 40 in biblical terms is like trial, tribulation, like purification, a testing, like 40 days in the desert with Jesus, 40 years in the desert before the promised land. What is she preparing us for? And as Mariana says, certain events are going to come. Already in her book a few years ago now, she already sees things in motion. What's now happened these past few years? We have a worldwide global pandemic. We have seen for the first time in our lives storming of Capitol Hill, the riots over these last few years in America, getting prodded by those opposed to Trump, causing it all. This is the point where it's coming to, is they want this man out and now he's going. And what's the agenda? The Great Reset, the globalist agenda. Communism. Worldwide communism. Bit by bit our freedoms are getting taken away now. Masks, social distancing, lockdown after lockdown, churches are closed. It proves the fact that the government don't put God in the first place. It proves there's a lack of belief. It proves of the undermining of what an established Catholic Church is, especially. God gave us it himself. These things are completely not even taken into account by those who are leaders, and that's why I think any atheist should never be in government. They're not taking in everything. We've really fallen as a humanity since the great times of the Greeks. I mean, they might have been pagans, but at least they believed. And they were logical. But yeah, a little ramble on just now, folks. I hope the video, at least, and the differences in how it's been put across in the media should make you alert to where you should get your information from and what the plan overall has really been. And it's not about doom and gloom. It's always about hope. Because at the end of the day, he's already won the battle. It's won. It's what we need to go through. It's the question. It's what's coming next. It's still the question. But no matter what happens, the great day of the warning, the illumination of conscience, the great day of the great miracle, and many other things that are coming are going to be good things. So many things are coming into this period of time now. It'll come a point, I think, even the atheists will start to question what's going on. So keep the hope, keep the faith, and I look forward to your next. I look forward to the next video with you all. Please leave your messages below. What would you like to discuss a little bit more? Also, give me the thumbs up and share the video if you can, and subscribe if you're new. It really helps the channel grow, and I look forward to bringing you better content this year for sure.